Howdy there. Ron Callis here with another episode of Automation Unplugged. This is episode 96. Automation Unplugged is brought to you by my day job, which is at One Firefly. Thank you for joining. I am going to jump in real quick over here to Facebook and see if our live stream is coming in. All right, it does appear that it is coming in live. That's great. So today is, what is today? Today's Wednesday. It's January 29th. It is just a little bit after 12:30, coming to you on our normal day and our normal time. And I am pumped because I get to bring you one of my friends from the industry, a longtime customer of One Firefly, and all around just super fascinating individual. And that is Ian Dohalick of Relative Home Systems out of Houston. So let me go ahead and bring in Ian.
Good morning, everyone. How are y'all?
Ian, how are you? How's it going, man?
Good, man. You doing all right?
It's another. I just had lunch. I just woofed it down. I've been a busy bee. It was at the doctor's this morning, and I'm here now with you, and we're gonna have fun on episode number 96 of Automation Unplugged.
Awesome.
Ian,
looking forward to it.
Where are you coming to us from?
Currently, my home office in the Woodlands, in Texas.
In Texas, Woodlands is northern Houston.
Yeah, suburbs, 45 minutes north of Houston, roughly, if traffic's good.
Got it. Okay. All right. And we already have some people making comments. We have Wes. Wes says, hey, Ian, welcome to Automation Unplugged.
What's going on, Wes?
All right. Let's. We actually have another comment here. We have Tina. She says, welcome, Ian. Glad to have you on Automation Unplugged.
Hey, Tina. Thank you.
Tina is our newest hire here at One Firefly. She is our new manager of people operations. So
awesome.
Yes, very exciting. We now have 40 people on our team, and we are continuing to grow. And so hiring and taking care of our people is a top priority. So we hired an awesome new person to do that. So thanks for watching, Tina. Okay, so Ian, I know you, I know your background, but sure. I would love for our audience to get to know you and understand a little bit about where you're coming from. Do you mind taking us down that path?
No, I don't. And I'll save everybody a little bit of time because I don't want to get too detailed with it. But essentially, I started in this industry, a lot like the other guys in car audio, but a little bit different in the sense that when I got into the industry, it was pre-wiring first. I mean, literally, just started from the very bottom and continued to work myself up from there. But a very short period of time, I was running a crew, doing a few houses a week. And then after that, my growth just kind of went exponential from there. I really picked up on it fast, understood connections, understood distances, understood, how to properly run the wire, what kind of wire to use at a time that I felt, we were just now starting to talk about introducing Cat 6 into homes, which is interesting if you think about it, right? We're still Cat 3 and Cat 5 at this point in time. What
are those years? What was the year where you started in car audio?
You're lying, 2001, 2002.
Okay.
Does that sound about right? Kind of when that was,
at
least in the Houston market. Let me put it that way. I know that California is usually a little bit, further ahead of us on the tech curve, and so is New York. But here residentially in apartment complexes, houses, you name it. Back when we were competing against the electricians doing all the work, that might a little bit more of a time there. Before a low voltage company was something that you just went out and hired, right? So there was challenges that came with that, understanding what your place was, what we were trying to do for everyone. And then competing against the electricians was pretty difficult to do in that from a pricing standpoint. So anyways, I got out of that. And, I got into the retail side with a company called Home Entertainment Inc. in Houston. And they were essentially a spinoff of the original Home Entertainment Inc. that became Tweeter before Tweeter went out of business. There was no correlation between the two companies outside of the owner of the company used to be married to the daughter of the original Home Entertainment Inc. And his name was Kevin Buchannan, really good guy. Very big, played a big role in my industry, and I'll give him credit on that. And if he's listening, or if somebody sends this to him, he's gonna be like, "I told you I'm gonna get a phone call. You wait." And I know also if Sven Neer is listening right now, he's sitting there laughing already, going, "I can't believe you gave him credit on air." But I am, man. He told us one time, I remembered that he will get emails and phone calls from employees he used to have, giving him compliments about his management and all these things. And what was funny about that at the time was we thought that he was just nuts. He was just a wild. He was just a wild manager. But the point in saying that is he taught me a lot about business, inventory. Sven taught me a lot about management, how to treat people. At the time when I was young, I really didn't have that. I was out in the field. There wasn't a lot of interaction between clients and myself outside of other builders, specifically project managers that I would communicate with. And all that was done. The sales side, it was all done internally, right, for the company. Mm-hmm. So anyways, past that, I kind of took a liking to Savant. This is roughly 2007, 2008, early, and went to training. And that was my introduction from, I'll back up a second. Home Entertainment Inc., by the way, was a retail high-end Macintosh, Sonos Faber theater company, right? There was no automation at the time. We were there, universal remotes, surround sound receivers, you name it. But it was a higher end. It was a really nice setting inside, and we were right out here in the Woodlands, so it was a really nice place to work.
So 2008, that has to be right around, I don't remember the exact year Savant launched, but it had to have been right around that time frame, right?
Yes. So actually, Dan, and I can't remember Dan's last name to save my life. I always forget. But Dan, who's been one of the main reps for Savant in the lower southern hemisphere for a long time, and it was his first week because I went to dinner with him and a couple other people that were just hired on there. So that's kind of how new it was when I went. Mm-hmm. And I honestly, I was ignorant to the fact of how big that side of the industry already was because I wasn't exposed to it before. Okay, just the home theater portion I was. So it really spiked an interest in me, and I became obsessed. I just wanted to know everything about Savant. I wanted to know everything about Crestron, Control 4 at that point in time in my life, and all of a sudden my career just kind of jumped. It just took off from there. Honestly, that's what it was. I was interviewed by another company that scouted me out from Home Entertainment Inc. Worked there for a short while and learned a lot about restructuring a business because that's what they did when they hired me on. Mm-hmm. Helped to reset that up. There was a lot of things that we had to figure out how to not let builders down, right? That we'd had contracts with whenever he was doing the restructuring. So a lot of PR went into that. Learned a lot, and I was scouted out again by another company at a trade show, which is now part of the Bravas Group here in Houston called SES. And Kevin Roach over there, who's always been a mentor of mine. I've got a lot of respect for that guy as well.
I just saw Kevin last week I was in Vegas at the Savant Integrators Summit.
Yeah,
I saw Kevin and.
Yeah, I'm super excited for those guys, man. I hope that all pulls out, and I'm rooting for them. Even they're competitors of mine now, but even so, I just really, our industry needs to keep going, man, and we need as many people in it as we can with the experience that we need to continue on. So I'm really rooting for them, and so anyways, worked with Kevin and that out for a while. Loved it, helped them grow. We moved from a small building to a larger building during my tenure with them, and after that, I started receiving text messages from my partner, who Boyd Perkis, actually one of my partners. There's three of us, interestingly enough, and he had a picture of an empty parking spot outside of the building, and he said, "Hey, man, when is your truck? Everyone in Texas drives a truck, so when is your truck going to be in this parking spot?" And I didn't respond the first couple of times. So eventually, I called him, and we had a really good conversation. And at this time, honestly, I thought I was going to get out of the industry in full. There were some personal things going on in my life. There's some decisions I had to make. I had my daughter around this time, and I think my wife was almost pregnant with her. Yeah, we're thinking about having a second one at this time as well. Sure. There's a lot of life change going on, a lot of which usually only parents understand what I'm talking about when I say that. I'm trying to adjust of how you take care of more bodies in your house. You know what I mean? So it was interesting to be the educator, not the one needing to be educated. So after going through that, I decided, you know what, I'm going to make a deal with these guys. I'm going to give it a shot, and I want to see how everything goes. And we signed a contract for me to be an employee for roughly 3 years. And at the end of that contract, if I wanted to make partner, I'd have that option if they were still willing to have me around. And that was October of 2013 when I was hired on there. And roughly 17 was really when I started playing the role of an owner. And then 18 was when it became official, January. And I've been just here building this. And that's really where I kind of say, like I said, at the beginning of my career is pretty boring, but it was just a lot of hard work and repeat business at that point to get me where I needed to be. But anyways, the agreement that we had, there was a lot of people that doubted if the relationship would work between the three partners, and it was tough. It was tough at first. So I've just learned a lot, man. I'm a guy of experience more than anything else, right? I guess that's the way to say it. I did not graduate from college. I did try college. It moved too slow for me. I can't sit still. A good employee and friend of mine once called me a fire starter. He said that, you just, in order for you to be entertained, you've got to just light the fire and see who's going to jump on board with you and go for it. And so that's what it's been like, man. And my two partners, they're the support that I've always needed because that's the way that they respond. Wayne is an operations guy and Boyd is a people person, and they keep me in check just like I keep them in check.
They're the yin to your yang.
They really are, man. They really are.
I'm going to throw up on the screen here the website. So for those that want to check out relativehomesystems.com, that is the business that you have called home since 2013. And I do want to, I'm just curious. So you are a business, you're an integration firm with 3 owners.
We are, yes.
How do you guys balance or divide, or maybe you just answered it by saying that you'd mentioned Wayne is an operations person and Boyd is people. So do you guys define like segments of the business, day-to-day operations, and you all carry a certain amount of weight, or how do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to be honest about, self-awareness, I can tell you right now that being a manager of people is not my best trait. I am probably more emotional than I need to be. I like getting close to people, man, and I get my heart broken when they leave or something happens, right? It's just the kind of person I am. And so over the years of trying to learn to become a business owner, you really have to kind of numb that to some extent to do what's right for the business without, hurting people and families in the process. So I would say that we would assign those types of duties to Wayne to handle and manage. And mine would primarily be understanding the marketing and sales direction of the company, really what we want to do with business development. And I can tell you right now that Boyd would probably be just head of customer service is the way I would name it. He really has an eye for detail when it comes to taking care of our clients. And I learned a lot from him in that respect. So
I want to take the conversation here in a couple directions. And yeah. I've known you long enough, Ian, to know that the last couple of years were particularly challenging,
yes.
Particularly trying. And I'm imagining that many that are watching this live or watching later, or they're listening to the podcast, have challenges in their life, personal and professional. And yet the show must go on. And so if you don't mind, and to the level of your
no, not at all. I think
what did you guys go through?
Yeah, so I'm not going into too much detail out of respect for my partners, but essentially over a course of roughly 4 years, we lost, one of the best men in my wedding's father passed away from pancreatic cancer. And looking back, I didn't really understand what that was like for him to go through. We're the same age, and I hadn't lost my dad yet. I was fighting cancer with my dad at this point in time, but so that was just a different thing in the workplace to have to go through and understand. And then after that, my other business partner, Wayne, lost his father. Boyd lost his firstborn daughter. Wayne lost his father next, and then I lost mine January of 2019. So it was, and talk about having 3 partners, Boyd had to go through what he was going through. His wife's a big part of our business too. And so we had to support them, when they were going through that. Then Wayne had to take some time off. We had to support him when he was going through that. And then, same with me, to kind of give you an idea of how that works out. But yeah, it was also during the time where we had hit our biggest growth spurt, the years that we'd been in business. I think the first year we'd grown almost 32%, which was just, we were not planning for that, honestly. We grew huge in a very small amount of time. But we ended up managing that. And then, the second year we had another loss. It was like, it just kept getting harder and harder, man. It really did. You just think about all the projects that we have in our heads, or that we have written down, or the communications that we have with clients, and then, duck out of the picture for 3 to 4 or 5 months and let your guys kind of scramble to figure out, what you're going through. And all anyone wants to do is help you, right? They understand you're going through some dark times and the experience of loss. So anyways, man, yeah, it was a rough time. We're still kind of pulling out of that, if you know what I mean. Oh, Harvey too. Harvey hit Houston.
I was going to say, as if you aren't already down, and then the hurricane, clobbers Houston. Yeah,
and we had a flood. So when my dad was battling cancer, he was actually on the news. He was living on the fourth floor of a building, a memorial downtown for older people to live in. And the whole first floor and half of the second was flooded. And it was still completely occupied by people all the way. The building's still not condemned. There's still some people that have not moved out. So that was interesting, when you with all the treatments he had to go through and dealing with that, it was pretty tough. But Harvey did an interesting thing to our marketplace, and some people were affected and some weren't. But essentially what it did for us, we were doing a lot of estate-size home projects, and it just felt like time slowed. A lot of the trades had gone to help with the effort of rebuilding what they could. And so you lost a lot of talent for, 3, 4, 5 months until they started returning back to projects and getting them completed. So that slowed.
Construction timeline,
right,
slowed down on all these big jobs.
Yeah. I mean, like an example would be a 24-month build would turn into a 36-month build,
which of course affects your payout cycle.
Yeah. 100%. Right. And at the time when this is happening, you actually don't even see that. It's like a year later you feel that, right? Because it's so hard to understand in your marketplace what's truly happening in that 2 to 6 month period of time after a disaster comes through. Especially in our industry, when we're dealing with higher end clientele, right? It's just, everything is more custom. Like an example being, let's say we had completed a home theater in a basement, believe it or not, here in Houston. They were flooded, and we had to redo the entire system over again. And this was like a 2-month, 3-month interval between when we just put a brand new system in and had to redo it. So that's always tough going back to clients, and just having those conversations when you just had a successful deployment, and you've got to restart and pull different wire. I mean, it was just so. And that's one of the very small examples of a lot of other things that we went through. And people like us, builders we talked to, said they were down 60 or 70% on sales or new builds, which was interesting. And if you guys do a lot of business with builders primarily, then you can understand how you'd be affected by that. And we relied on our interior designer relationships and architecture relationships to make it through that. And we did. So.
How is the Houston market doing now? Is it fully bounced back? I mean, there's the silver lining, and some of that I'm imagining is insurance payouts would likely have recovered or covered some losses for some of those homeowners.
It did for most of our clients, right? But I think that maybe not so much from the aftermath of Harvey is really just what's going on in the news with government and everything else, and conservatism here is a big push. So I'd say our marketplace right now it's strong. Okay. It's strong, but it's definitely changing. And I think anybody that's in the Houston and maybe even the Southern Hemisphere of the United States can agree that it's changing. And the reason why I say that, Ron, is because there is such a difference in price per square foot purchase here than there is New York, LA, or especially in Canada. Right. And giving you an example of that, we were a Milson dealer, and about a year ago, we were trying to really get Milson off. Are you familiar with Milson?
Yeah.
Okay, so Yeah, so a great group of guys and Maverick Electronics up there, and it's amazing group of people. Got to go up there and visit with them. And the biggest struggle we had with trying to sell their product here was that what they solved with square footage, removal of kneeing rack and doing a built-in or integrated surround sound in the front, people were fine with having a closet.
Right.
Square footage, they're like, well, we'll just, over the cost of doing a specialized system like this, right? So it was just kind of an interesting thing to see, but I learned a lot going through that process of what was valuable to our clients. And at that time we were doing the iconic River Oaks high rise. So that was new for us too.
Ian, I just got a fan of yours that just jumped in. Mark Fisher says, "What's up, Ian? You guys rock."
Sorry about that, guys. My Bluetooth was connected to my headphones.
That's okay. No, I was just giving Mark some credit. Mark was my guest last week. He and Miranda, and he's watching the show, and he says hello.
Hey.
He says, "You guys rock." So there you go. Throwing something your way.
Thanks, man. So I'd say the marketplace is strong, man, but it's definitely changing. I would say a lot of my competition that would be listening to this would agree with me 100%.
So I want to take you down a different path here, and that is you've done something that I think is pretty fascinating and or interesting, or maybe interesting. Maybe many listening might strive to achieve the same, and that is you went from being a new hire and an employee to a partner in this business. And how number one, how did that happen? I mean, within again what you're comfortable talking about, did you know on day one that you would want to become partner in this business? Would you know the responsibilities that would then be taken on and or the risks that would be taken on? And how did you make?
No, I knew nothing. Honestly,
isn't it?
Yeah, honestly, I knew nothing. I just knew that I had a contract and my terms were judged on if I kept my word, and I kept my word. And at the end of that, it was time to, reap the benefits of that. Right. I'm not a majority partner by any means. I have a very small percentage in the company. And Wayne and Boyd very much still run the day-to-day operation of the business, make a lot of the major decisions. They ask me for my opinion, and they do take it very seriously. But I have a lot of respect for those guys. They started it in 2001, and they've been able to keep it running without me. So I never lost, my ego never got big enough to where I was like, that if I leave, they're going to go out of business. No, life goes on. Right. So I would say that the most interesting part that I was really not ready for was being an employee, then becoming a partner, and then watching what happens to your relationships with those colleagues. Right. And that was tough to deal with a little bit. Cause like I said, I'm a very personal person, and I like to be close to people and know they're doing okay. And I think at some point in time, employees start to pull back a little bit what they want to talk to you about, and so that was it was definitely something I was not expecting, and I didn't want to have happen, honestly. But other than that, though, man, I mean, it was a journey, and it was a lot of fun. It was really, we did a lot of cool stuff, and the team I have supporting me and that I had back then too, they just really were always supportive and on board. I've definitely been called nuts a couple of times in my life, but my team was always like, let's just get it done.
That's it, man. Just get it done. Wellness. You guys are jumping in. I don't know if both feet is the right way to say it, but you guys are excited, pumped about the future of what wellness means for an integrator, for an integration business. And you have your own belief systems around why it's needed, how it helps your customers, and even some of the paths that you're running down with wellness. Can you speak about that?
Sure. Let's start with the basics as like an industry, as what I believe we should be doing for our clients.
Okay.
And that is essentially, humans are creatures of habit, right? Good habits, bad habits, it doesn't matter. But you have habits, whether you like it or not, and whether you're willing to admit it. Everybody has habits, and those habits define who we are on a daily basis. If it's health related, physical fitness, the way you dress, the way you act, the way you write an email. These habits are literally the book or the video of who we are as individuals to others. Okay. And I think when we look at the media and the content that's within it, psychologically, it can be a frustrating and maybe even debilitating for some people to sit there and read all these posts and get, what FOMO is, fear of missing out, right? All those kinds of things. So the point is, and I'll tell you a little backstory. I had a meeting with a client one time, and this was probably 2014, 15, large house, very expensive project. And the client had told me, listen, I'd like surround sound in these rooms, bedrooms, living room, game room, theater room, and one in every room, right? And for me, coming from a conservative, Houston background, it was kind of like, hey, I want to tell you that I really don't think that it's necessary for you to have all these surround sounds. I really think you're overspending in these places. But what's the thought process behind it? And it was that he wanted to separate his family. He literally wanted everybody watching TVs in different rooms. And now a little bit on my background real quick. I came from a family that was broken. And I remember growing up as a kid going, I missed being with my family in one room, right? So when this client hit me with this, I dwelled on that.
Did you just tell him no and you fired him as a client?
No, right? Stuff to eat.
Thought about it.
But he did become more sensible to the conversation and then started understanding some of the psychological impacts it may have on his children. So believe it or not, he wasn't ignorant of the fact that could cause some issues. And so we talked through it. And we came up and settled on not as many areas. We did put some speakers in those rooms, et cetera. But it was still, for me, kind of an eye-opening thought process as a salesperson, because I'm sitting there my entire life going more, better speakers, louder speakers, more amplification, more TVs, more sources, better image, better audio. And then I was kind of stopped dead in my tracks that day. And the question was raised internally for myself, what was I doing it for? And that stuck, man. That stuck. And it stuck all the way up until, I'd say, my dad's passing. Right? January of last year was a big thing for me. And when he passed, I realized that being as I'd missed pretty much a lot of my life with my father on the way that I wanted to have the type of relationship I wanted to have, that is what I'm doing for a living, causing that in other families. And I wasn't trying to, be a hero and take that on and go change the world and do these things. But my point was, as an individual, I wanted to look at how I could take what I love to do for a living and apply it towards bringing people together and also making them healthier, whether it's mental health, physical health, even business health and relationships, right? And so I just started asking a whole bunch of questions that were pretty pointed and would demand pretty honest answers. And I'll go through a couple of those questions I asked my clients. One was being a parent of I have 3 young kids. I'm 35, which is relatively young for someone to have 3 kids. And a lot of my clients that are in their later 40s have kids around the same age. So we get along on a level that we had never really thought was going to be possible, right? And we would tell stories about our kids. And this one client of mine, she came to me and she said, hey, Ian, what do you do in your business? Because we were talking about remodeling my house and soundproofing walls. She goes, what do you do in your business whenever you have a client that needs some alone time? And we were already talking as an organization about taking what we do and creating a space for our clients that would allow alone time. And on our website, we actually have a rendered video you can watch. It's very short. And on my Instagram page as well. I'm sorry, it's on my Instagram page, not my website yet. But it's an example of a meditation space, or what we're going to deem biophilia theaters. Sorry. And what we're doing is taking the last 20 years of our knowledge in the home theater industry, right where we came from, understanding sound, understanding acoustics in general, understanding what these spaces, what kind of emotions they're supposed to bring to an individual, and implementing those into a design and a concept that allows clients to take their personal attributes of their life and help us create a sanctuary essentially for them to go. So for this, going back to this example, this client asked, okay, can you build that for me? And the answer is yes, we can. We've built theaters before, no problem. And then you start asking yourself, what are you going to put in it? And that's when Pandora's box opens. You get in the conversation of natural materials, right? How health conscious do you want to go? Air purification, water filtration. Do you want any technology to be in the space? Music, audio, video, whatever. And who we are as individuals too. That thought process kind of triggered something inside me to start asking, could I have created a better environment for my father before he had passed? And this is where stuff started getting interesting. If you look back at your experience in life and you've lost somebody in it that was close to you, and you people, everyone out here knows what I'm talking about. When I mean somebody close, I mean somebody so close that it literally changes who you are internally as a human being when you've experienced this type of loss. And you start to question not only what you're doing, how you're doing it, but also what is the effect that is going to have on the future legacy of yourself, for your children, for your colleagues, for your friends, what have you. And I thought about my dad, and I thought about all the people that were by his bedside and the dinners we went to support when he was passing, all the GoFundMe pages he had for his cancer that he was going through and how many people supported it. And I just realized that having a space to feel healthy in is, in my opinion anyways, going to be something that is very important to consumers in the future. I think we're all starting to realize right now that we've been inside for too long, and it's causing us to be unhealthy. So that's kind of a long story there, man. But the bottom line is, go ahead.
Go ahead.
The bottom line is that was just kind of a concept that came into mind, and it's grown exponentially from there. The next thing for us was, how can we assist clients to in healthy lifestyles, like we were talking about earlier, was food, right? For example.
I was telling Ian before we went on air, because I was quickly wolfing down my lunch, that I use, what's the service? I use the service HelloFresh.
Yeah.
And they deliver food and ingredients to your home, and then you cook them, but they're fresh, they're right size, so you're friendly to the environment, and that you're not ordering a bunch of food and then throwing out half of it. And I love it. So I mean, I think I've never eaten healthier in my life probably than I have in the last 12 months since I've been using such a service, and it makes such an impact on you.
What do you love about it the most, Ron?
Well, I love that a number of things. Number one, I love good food. I live in West Fort Lauderdale, and there's it's just, frankly, it's no New York, it's no Houston, it's no San Francisco, and it's no Miami in terms of just the quality of restaurants and quality of food. It's just not what I would call great food out at most restaurants, and so discovering that service, and I'm not a spokesperson for HelloFresh, but we just, our fans, maybe we're evangelists, because I'm here telling all of you, is that we love to eat it because it tastes great. Mm-hmm. My wife, we've designed a lifestyle. My wife we're both home all day. Mm-hmm. So she loves to cook it. She loves cooking. She loves the kitchen. She loves making delicious food.
It's an educational experience as well, right? I mean,
well, our portfolio of skills in the kitchen, as silly as this might sound, have exponentially increased because we've learned all of these different ways of making sauces and making broiling foods. And I'll give a little tip here. I don't know if anyone's going to appreciate this. If you put broccoli and you put a little olive oil on broccoli and a little salt and pepper, and you broil that for about 10 minutes, it is the most delicious food you could ever imagine. I grew up my entire life hating broccoli until we discovered this new technique. So yeah, you could get me on a rant of eating good food. I'm a big fan.
So let's just say too that maybe you love the fact that it's automated, right? Someone else is picking
once a week, the boxes with just our meals in it. It's just shows up and it just happens. It's easy.
So if you look at that business model that they have, a lot like Trunk Club, these other clothing clubs, and you can read all kinds of articles on how a lot of these businesses are losing money over the cost of the entry, and then trying to get people to sign up and selling different things to make money. So my point to that is that there's always been a movement for self-sustainability. Okay. And we look at it in houses as adding a generator, right? Power goes out, you're self-sustainable. You can get your grid back up. You can use your house again.
Maybe an in-house battery storage, but yeah, some method of keeping your energy alive.
Yeah, whatever it might be, right? And I think that for consumers hits home because they like to have a plan B when it comes to safety and quality of life. And if you start looking at all the people purchasing organic foods, going to organic restaurants, HelloFresh, I mean, you name it, right? And it's because we're all starting to understand the importance of the things that we put into our bodies on a much greater scale because of social media and the fact that you can go on Instagram and educate yourself, or you can go on YouTube and educate yourself if you find somebody that is worth being educated by. Well, you can see a big calling for gardens, and a lot of people out there trying to create homemade gardens, and they get into it and they do it a little while and they fail. Or they do it a little while and they succeed, but then they realize the maintenance of it is just too much to do when you're an entrepreneur or whatever it might be. It's just a lot of.
Are you saying there's a play for an integrator to get into the garden business?
We've gotten into the garden business.
You've gotten into the. All right, please do tell.
Yeah. So there's a company called GLTI. His name is George Irwin. He is out of Jersey. And there's a whole backstory that goes to how I even got onto this concept, and it goes into my business with my father. And essentially what George is an educator in special education, and he's also a world-known curriculum writer in the educational space. And two of his partners are runners-up for Nobel Prizes. There's a whole list. Maybe we could put the line of what the backstory is on this.
Yeah, we can drop into the show notes on our webpage on onefirefly.com. We'll put show notes in. You can provide those to me, and I'll drop them in there. What is the website, just so I can grab the website for this?
Greenroof.com.
Greenroof.com. All right, I'm going to drop it here on the screen in just a second, folks. But keep going in.
So, George is a really interesting guy. We become really close, and we decided that we see a play to bring in automated growing of not only produce, but vertical art using green walls. And so an example of that would be that we have a client now, we're going to be doing one around a kitchen window. And it's a small space, but it's literally there to provide aromatherapy in the kitchen, as well as a pretty art piece of greenery inside, bringing in biophilia design to the space. And a second piece of that is we're going to be doing a garden for her as well outside, and we're going to automate all of it. And when you start getting into the conversation,
automate a garden. I'm terribly curious.
Okay, well let's break this down and make it really simple. Okay, let's say you have just a plant on your desk at the house. All right, and this plant requires a certain amount of water, a certain amount of nutrients, a certain amount of sunlight, right, on a daily basis. You don't have any high expectations out of that plant because it just sits on your desk. Throw food in that bucket. Plan to be self-sustainable and see how much pressure you feel to grow it and make sure that it is sustainable and provides for you, right? So how do we take that scenario and turn it into a conversation piece? How do we turn it into a device for producing for your family without you having to babysit it? And that is to automate the nutrients and water flow to the plants. themselves or produce.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to use Crestron, and we have gotten with George, and we're pulling some of the nutrients dispensing systems that he uses for his other business, which is the cannabis industry. And he essentially sells these containers that have vertical growing walls in them for the marijuana industry, because they can contain and yield way more plants than a normal marijuana would grow would be, out in Colorado or California, or wherever you're gonna do it. And so, I don't know how much going to that side of it. So.
Basically saying taking a lot of the technology that was invented around the grow business, with obviously marijuana is blowing up all over the country. 20 plus states have now legalized it in some fashion. So obviously there's been a tremendous amount of technology innovation there, bringing some of that technology integration into the what are all the other plants? What are the produce that you're going to eat the food, or just plants that you want to look at because they're beautiful, and adding technology to automate that and doing that as an integrator. So within this wellness line card, or this wellness or biophilia conversation, you're now adding this new thing to talk about to your customers.
Yes.
Now, is that it has already happened and you are talking about it, or you're planning to talk about it, and that's a plan for 2020?
One secret I can't give away, but we'll do a big announcement. You'll be a part of that.
Right.
But two things I can't give away. We did sell a green wall already in a vertical garden. So those are contracted and they're going to be out. Right. We'll do a whole coverage on that on our Instagram page of those going up and being created. And the second piece of that is we have done a really good job at letting people understand that not only can we use green walls for as art pieces. When I mean art pieces, I mean, think about like during a holiday, Christmas, right? You want to, I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of the plants. It just went blank. I was about to say it, but
the red ones, the red and green.
Yes.
Ones? Yeah. I don't know them either, but I know.
Anyways, let's just say you have a plant or a set of plants growing that's just all greenery.
Poinsettias?
Poinsettias.
There you go.
That's right. Sure. We'll run with poinsettias. So anyways, you would pull those out, add some red or some color to this wall, right? Without having to repaint the wall. And you do it in a natural way. And it's literally as easy as swapping 1 4-inch or 6-inch planter out for the new plant that you're swapping it with. And then on the automation side of it, we're going to have the code written with images that states what those optional plants are you can switch them with. Okay. The growth cycles, nutrients, and all that will be under the info on the Crestron touch panel.
Sean is helping us out, by the way. It's poinsettias. There we go. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it.
Helping us out. Great job.
I'm not a plant guy yet. I'm working on it. I'm not yet. But
by the way, I do want to put another comment up here. Chris is coming to us from the UK, and around the idea of those quiet rooms. He says, cool, yes. Just tuned in. My wife always says she needs some alone space when she's had the kids all day.
The wives have been driving this more than the males. You can imagine that for several reasons.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah. It's, so that was kind of a small little example with putting the poinsettias in and adding some color, some flair, and it allows people to get artistic and decide what they want to do. That's one little piece of kind of the first start of selling a green wall. And then the second piece of that is there are, it almost runs like in a square footage or a volume space for removing negative VOCs, volatile organic compounds,
like
chemicals, molds, off gases, things of that nature. And
there's some math where you can put enough greenery in your house that it will in fact clean the air in your house.
No, in the singular space, yes. So that's the big misconception with you can do the Googling on this. Is clients say, well, I'll go buy a plant from Home Depot and put it in my house, and all of a sudden I'm going to notice a dramatic change in my attitude and my mental, all that kind of. It's not how it works. Okay. There's a mathematical equation to the proper amount of square footage needed to cover and the vertical wall space needed to to do those things, to filtrate
I'll
properly.
buy that. But so you're saying that the science says that if I do it is possible in a room in your house that I could put enough plants on a green wall that the air quality in that room is in fact better than in other areas of the home.
That is correct. Yes. And it brings another, so let's just say that, let's even pull air quality out of it for a second. Let's just say, because there's so many other ways you can do air filtration, and a green wall is not the way that I would hang on it. Okay. The biggest things that you're going to get out of a green wall is the environment that you create, bringing outdoors in. Okay. The conversational piece, the artwork behind it, the common stuff that people can relate to. And the next piece of that, and what's more important to me, is aromatherapy. Do you have any knowledge or experience with aromatherapy at all?
I do not know much, although the idea that you can smell. I know that like when you go into a shopping, like a high-end mall or store, they'll have pumped certain smells into the air.
That's correct.
It's supposed to energize you, and so other than the basic level, no,
So I'll give you an idea of how it would help, how it would have helped my father had I created a space for him. Okay. Peppermint, lavender, lavender's a calming, and then peppermint, if you have nausea, you can get rid of nausea with peppermint, smelling it and inhaling it.
Drinking peppermint tea when you have an upset stomach.
That as well. Yes. Peppermint tea. You ever heard of thieves?
I like bad people that break into your house.
Yeah, no, no, it's a type of natural, almost antibacterial type of solution that you can mix with water, and you can use it through aromatherapy. You can wipe your hands with it. You can use it as hand soap. Okay. It's an antibacterial natural form. So when you're talking about in a space of removing all of these non-organic, right, you want to, it's all encompassing, from the soap that you put on your hands or the chemicals you put on your skin, right? So aromatherapy, what's really neat about it, and what I love the most is that it's what I call clarity forming when you're going or trying to get into a meditative space. Do you meditate at all, Ron?
I've practiced it on a number of occasions. I'm out of practice right now, and as I think you'd agree, it is a practice. There's no perfection. So I'm a big believer in meditation and what it does for you, for sure.
Sure. So a lot of people meditate and they don't even realize it. Mm-hmm. I think, to me personally, depending on who you are and what you're capable of doing for yourself, using your own mental power, right, dealing with your emotions, etc., you may stop and take a break to take a deep breath in the middle of your day for 10 seconds. Well, that was your body forcing you to meditate to some extent. It was your body forcing you to find center, right? To kind of go, hey, deal with the pressure, deal with the stress, deal with the anger, what sadness, whatever it might be. That's your body. What you're waiting until the last minute, and your body goes, okay, you need to take a deep breath. Here we are. So just like the comment about a lot of the wives and moms, they take their deep breaths in front of their kids, right? They take their deep breaths in the moment. They got a kid screaming, and they've got a kid that's saying they're hungry, and they just stop, they close their eyes for a second. We've all seen our wives do it. They take a deep breath and are just like, oh, if I could just give me 5 minutes to myself, right?
Yes.
So that's your natural meditative state, is your body getting you to, extinguish the situation. So giving a place, and here's another piece of this too, is if you take a theater, right, and use it for a meditative space, at the same time the mom is feeling that stress, psychologically the kids are feeling the stress as well. A lot of people don't think about it. It's coming from both angles. Kids are screaming for attention for a reason, causes stress. So they're stressed. Imagine having a spot that you could maybe take that one kid out of that situation that's creating a stressful scenario, take him to that room, knowing that it's soundproof, knowing you can't hear any outside influence, maybe turning on their favorite song and sitting with them and having some one-on-one time, right? It's about understanding the situation on a daily basis that you have with your family and having a place to take them to enjoy whatever it is that gets you guys back to center. And so,
what do you call these spaces when in from a marketing or sales dialogue standpoint? What do you?
Our Biophilia Theater.
Your Biophilia Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And is that I know we have been reading about this word biophilia. Does a person that you're speaking to know what that word means?
Some, yes. If you have a client that's a horticulturist, he's going to know what it is. If you have anyone that knows anything about E.O. Wilson,
E.O. Wilson. I don't know anything about E.O. Wilson.
Yeah, so it's a long conversation. It'd be better if everyone just kind of did their own research on this. But and there's also an E.O. Wilson biophilia.
Is he a thought leader around this concept of biophilia?
Yes, 100%, 100%.
Everyone can Google. You're all big boys and girls. Everyone can Google that and learn more about that. I will add this, Ian. Since all of this conversation, really over the last 6 to 12 months, in our channel, has been about this topic. I've taken it to heart. I mean, as you know, as marketers, we're representing hundreds of companies to thousands or tens of thousands of consumers. So we have a responsibility to get this and understand it intimately. And so a small little way that I'm doing that personally in my house is on Saturday and Sunday mornings. I have whole home audio distribution, so I have music in almost every room in the house. And I've been going to my Tidal library and playing forest sounds. So on Saturday mornings, first thing, I'm usually the first one up. So when my wife and son get up, they are listening to the sounds of some, rainforest and birds and maybe trickling water. It's at a really low volume, but it makes you feel like we're literally sitting in the middle of a forest. And I love it. It's so calming. I think there's something deep rooted in your brain that just goes, this feels right. And
it's because that's what you're supposed to hear when you wake up in the morning. That's
if you look genetically, I mean, we've only been sitting in houses for maybe the last, 500 years, 1,000 years. And our species have been out there for, depending on school of thought and Darwinian theories, for a couple of million years. So
if you
makes sense.
Yeah. And look, you can start to see it coming back in the construction industry on architectural plans too. So we'll jump into this really quick and then we'll jump out of it. But essentially, if you think about, take the word or terminology biophilia out of the scenario, and let's just talk about what would be considered a biophilic or biophilia atmosphere dating back to when, humans first were on Earth. Cave dwellers, everyone made supplemental or different types of housing for themselves, right? They adapted. And as construction began to form, like the first space I would say would be like a back patio, right? Like just a deck, no cover on it. You put some seats out there. All of a sudden people are like, I really love having a back porch. I sit down and it's enjoyable to be able to look on my property and do these things, right? And then somehow and sometime as a culture, we're like, hey, it's great to have a back porch, but we don't like mosquitoes. Let's screen it in. Right. So now we're a little further away from nature. And then they're like, oh, I don't like the airflow to come through. I just want a sunroom to keep me warm. So they glass it in. Right. And then after that, they're like, man, I really, it's too hot. It's too hot. I could really use some AC in here. Let's either AC it or what actually had happened more 70s, 80s was indoor atriums. Do you remember when they used to stick them in the center of the houses?
Absolutely.
And then after that, because those used to mildew so bad and just get so hard to take care of, that's when skylights came into play as a big function to get natural lighting into houses, right? Now we have automated skylights and fake skylights. And it's interesting to me that on the technology side, it's okay, or we're believing it's okay as an industry to sell fake skylights. It's not that I'm against getting the proper light and circadian rhythm into a room. What I'm saying is that if you meet a client early enough in the design stage, you've got to bring this topic up for them. And here's why. If you don't, the designer or the architect is going to be. And the second they do, the technology that we need to guide that direction properly is still being formed. And everyone's going to revert back to the most natural way of doing things, natural building components, you name it. So getting a little off topic here, but the reason why is you can hear my kids. I'm sorry, guys. The kid,
Daddy.
yeah, the environment that we hope to create full circle, right? The entire package, because right now it's just pieces of it. The entire package is an environment that can be internally located. It's not in addition to the already proposed square footage. So it's just reusing a room. And that room has access to either a nano wall to be opened up completely to outside when the weather is right. It'll have access to air filtration, even water purification if you want to. If you're to do, if it's, I'll give you a better example: a yoga room. Clients using them for yoga, right? Sweating, wanting a water fountain, you name it. So instead of saying, well, I want to do water purification for your entire house, that's really on the plumber to understand, right? What we're talking about is one zone that's encompassing of an entire healthy environment. That's it.
Interesting. So one room where you've accounted for air purification, water purification, circadian rhythm, lighting,
yes,
smell-o-vision, also
yes,
known as what's the smell stuff?
Aromatherapy.
Oh, there you go. Aromatherapy is the official.
Yeah.
So combining all of those, I know people out there laughing. Did Ron just call it smell-o-vision? But putting all of that into one space and one package, and that probably is easier to talk about, and it's probably easier for the customer to say yes to. It's more approachable.
Yeah, it's more and affordable because
affordable. Good point.
Right, that's the biggest. That's really the biggest push here. Is I'm not trying to save the world. I'm not on some. What I'm trying to do, what we're trying to do as an organization, is simply say, listen, we've built these homes, like any of these estate homes you go into these days, Ron, they're gorgeous. Like, it doesn't matter who the architecture is. If the builder's a good builder, the architect's a good architect, the interior designer's a good interior designer. It's amazing.
Yeah.
What people are doing with homes these days. Absolutely incredible. But we're not focusing on actually living in them.
Yeah.
Like in a sense that, well, so we have a 30 to 90 day programming policy at the end of finishing or completing a project. And that 30 to 90, we call it 30, 60, 90. And the reason for that is we give the client 30 days to call us back as soon as they move in to say, hey, I want a little bit of programming changes now. And the next 60, 90 days to live with it, and we'll come back and make some more changes there, right? It's amazing, and I'm sure a lot of people agree with me, how much their thought process changed from the time they're building the house to when they're actually living inside it. And so we like to think that as an industry, we're asking the right amount of questions up front for what they will be doing regarding technology. But more importantly, we should be asking, what will they be doing habitually that we can help improve their quality of life? So I'll give you a small example, and here it is. How many times do you go to the grocery store, Ron? I mean, probably not that much now. You have HelloFresh, right?
Actually, much less.
Much less. When was the last time you went to the grocery store and forgot something, or wondered if you had it or not?
Well, my wife is going to laugh if I answer this honestly, because I don't know that I've personally been to the grocery store in maybe 10 years. But my wife or my wife and son will go often. So I'm not the super best person to ask that question.
Do they ever text you and say, hey, Dad, you're there. Can you go check and see if we have this in the pantry?
100%.
Why don't we put cameras in pantries?
Oh, so they could see what they have. Yeah, that makes sense.
Why
not be able to see what's in your fridge?
Why not in your fridge too?
But
that's my point, right? Is like, we look at like a habitual thing is going to the grocery store. How many times you go to the grocery store? I go to the grocery store all the time and go, oh, do I have that? I know I've got all the rest of these ingredients. Do I have that one ingredient? Right. And so let's say that's one small example for ease of use.
Have you done that? Have you put cameras in pantries?
Not yet.
I don't imagine that, whether it's husband or wife, whoever does the shopping or the cooking, I can't imagine they wouldn't want that.
It doesn't have to go on an NVR, right?
I've never heard of that even talked about before. That's like such a good idea.
So that's the smallest of my examples of ideas that I have to kind of simplify little things that happen in lives, especially with, I'll give you another example. What about on the, you got 3 kids. I'll tell you what I did at my house. I have a 2,500 square foot house I remodeled last year, and I have 16 cameras on it, and my neighbors think I'm nuts. And they don't understand that 4 of the cameras on the front of my house are actually for judging the play area of where my children are. So I have lines at the end of the street on one side and at the end of the street on the other side, and they know they're not allowed to pass those lines. So I have cameras at that line and a camera at this line and 2 cameras in the center. And without having to get off my butt, I can check in and make sure my kids are paying attention by using my camera system. So there's these little things that we need to be thinking about from an integration standpoint. And the only way to know what to ask is to go off of your own experience. Like I said,
my son is 11, and I've done the same thing around the perimeter of my house. So just you don't have to feel alone, Ian. We're both doing. He knows he's not allowed to play in the yard outside of the span of the camera view.
So and it's just amazing of how many things you can learn. 1, from having kids, and 2, from just considering changing small items in your automation programming to assist clients to live a better quality of life. We always say we're doing automation to improve qualities of life, right? Give me an example, right? Somebody can type in there in the team chat, give me an example of what you did, and I can almost guarantee you that if it truly improves quality of life, it is almost always surrounded or surrounding somebody's habits.
Yes.
It's something, whether it's
well, you're hearing it, folks. Ian is challenging, if you're out there listening, to type into the comments here. And I'm actually going to read a comment. It's not the answer to that question, but it's another thing. She says, Stephanie says, what an interesting concept of wellness. I'm loving this approach. I can't wait to see how it evolves. I'm pretty sure she made that comment as you were talking about the biophilia theaters concept. Ian, believe it or not, we have been on air for almost an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And this would make this interview officially one of my longest, if maybe not the longest, out of 96. So congratulations. And if our audience, anyone listening or watching, would like to get directly in touch with you, what is the way for us to do that? What is the way for folks to reach you?
You can actually get me on Instagram. It's at IN_DY, or any one of our relative pages is fine too. My personal page is on there.
I'm going to type that in. I've got the Instagram. I'm going to populate the screen with it. So it was INDY.
It's IN_DY.
IN_DY. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me show that on the screen. Tell me if I got it right. Do you see that?
I do not.
You do not. All right. Well, someone is out there on the interwebs. Try typing this in and tell me if I got it right. You know what? I'll even do one better. I will come over here to Instagram, IN_DY. Let me just make sure I got you right. No, that is a young lady.
Yep, that's not me.
That's definitely
just
not.
Just type in my name and it should. I don't know why that handle is not.
That poor girl. She's gonna have all these people hitting
right.
her random Instagram page. What about your email, Ian? What is that contact?
That's why. So this is a long one. It's D as in David, O as in Oscar, HALICK @relativehomesystems.com.
Awesome. And I am going to, if we bear with me here, I'm going to put that on the screen.
You know what? It was probably the capitalization, Ron, I bet. Capital
no.
I.
If you actually asked me what my Instagram handle was, I couldn't tell you on the spot. So I was impressed that you thought you could. I was like, wow, that's.
Yeah, it's actually IN_DY. Pulled right up on mine.
Okay, all right.
Or just Google my name, Ian Dohalick.
There you go. So I'm going to put this on the screen here. There you go, folks. There's Ian's email address if you'd like to get directly in touch with Ian. Ian, it was a pleasure to have you on the show on episode number 96. And I think I'm terribly curious, and I know our audience is curious as to how this plays out, the green wall strategy and the wellness strategy. So if you're game, I'd love to have you on maybe a little bit later in the year and hear how that's being received.
Oh, I'm sure you'll be around, man. We got a lot coming, so I really appreciate it, man, to be on your show, and I'm humbled by it. I love you guys. You guys do a great job, and I love our industry, and I hope everyone out there, if you're having any tough times, man, feel free to hit me up, give me a call, talk through it, business, sales, whatever you guys want to chat about. I'm here. I'm an open book for it, and I appreciate your time and tuning in. Thank you so much.
And Ian, just so that our audience knows, you do have a podcast that's going to come out later this year. So that's part of your 2020 strategy, is to roll out a show. And I think it's going to be around wellness or something to that respect.
Yes. Yeah. Pretty much.
So more to come. So hopefully I'm not saying too much or spilling the beans, but I know that all of that unveiling will come out later. But if you're listening and you like what you're hearing from Ian, know that there's more to come. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ron, and thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian. All right, gang, there you have it. That was show number 96, the one and only Ian Dohalick from Relative Home Systems. Thanks for listening and or watching if you're watching us on Facebook. And if you're listening, if you're out there, please do not forget, if you like these shows, you like the content, you can't always watch them live or you can't watch the videos. Don't forget that our podcast is now in all of your favorite podcast places. So just type in Automation Unplugged. You can subscribe. If you feel so compelled, leave a review. And that way more of your friends can ultimately see that this show exists. And they can download it and listen. So on that note, I will see you next time. And again, thanks for watching. See you soon.